Welcome back into the channel, and today we are going to continue the Tuesday tier list series as I am ranking every single NFL team as we head into week 5 of the NFL season. It is crazy to think that a month of football has already gone by. At this point in time, the tier list is going to be a decent amount more reflective based on what we've seen on the field. Some of it will still obviously have some thoughts on just my general thought on players and what's real and what's not. But a lot of this tier list now is going to be based on what we have seen on the football field, whereas the first few weeks were a little kind of like, yeah, but we know about some of these teams and, we'll talk about them when we get to them specifically. The 2026 Mock Draft SZN tier starts off with the New York Football Jets. The New York Jets lost to the Miami Dolphins last night. They fall to 0-4. Justin Fields is a fun fantasy type player, but I just don't believe he's a winning quarterback in the league. I actually think that the Jets outplayed the Dolphins in that game. When you look at the team stats, you'll see that more yardage. It was just penalties and turnovers that really killed them. I also have the Dolphins in this tier with Tyreek Hill done for the season. I just don't believe that their offense is going to be dynamic enough to even be frisky. They're 1-3, but their only win is over an 0-4 team. I think that they're both just pretty much bottom of the barrel at this point. I'm going to move Cleveland into this tier, man. And Cleveland is a weird team because I thought about moving them in frisky just because week to week, I do think that their defense can give teams problems, a la what they did to the Green Bay Packers. But ultimately, with Joe Flacco still at quarterback, I just can't be bothered to move that team anywhere else, to be completely honest. I think that with Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback, wins are going to be very, very hard for them to find. The Tennessee Titans are in this tier. Short and sweet, as Cam Ward said, if we're keeping it a buck, they're ass. We move forward. We are going to continue into the NFC now. And I got the New Orleans Saints in this tier. 0-4, put up a decent battle against Buffalo, to be completely honest with you guys, but 0-4 is 0-4. Spencer Rattler is now 0-10 as a starting quarterback in his career. And the Carolina Panthers in this tier. They had that weird 30-0 victory over the Falcons, but this past week, they were brought back down to life. They're just not a good football team. Into the Frisky tier. I still have the Cincinnati Bengals in this tier because they are 2-2. But if I have to see another week of Jake Browning out there and another loss where the offense looks completely inept, it might be time to move them down to the 2026 Mock Draft SZN tier. This is a team that desperately needs to trade for Jameis Winston. I said it when Joe Burrow first got hurt, and I'll say it now 2 weeks later. They need to make that move. The Las Vegas Raiders are in this tier. I do think that better days are ahead for Geno Smith and the offense. Ashton Genty finally got going, and I do think that week to week they can compete in football games. We saw that game with the Bears, came down to a blocked kick. I think that the Raiders will be a tough out week to week, but I don't see them making any real noise in the playoffs. I got Houston up in this tier. Houston did beat the brinks off of Tennessee, and I do still believe in the Houston Texans. They dug themselves a really massive 0-3 record hole, but with a real run game now with Woody Marks, I actually think that the offense looked pretty solid, and the defense was just always one of the best in football. They could be a surprise team that works their way back into the playoff picture, even after starting 0-3, in my opinion. We move forward here. We got the New York Giants, Jackson Dart. The Dart era is born. I thought about leaving them in 2026 Mock Draft SZN tier, but I do love their defense. Dart looked really, really solid. The Malik Neighbors injury hurt, but with Scatterbo, Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson, and just some hype behind the team, I think that they're going to be a tough out week to week, and I will move them into that Frisky tier. They did just beat the Chargers, who are a legit football team, and I do like their quarterback. That's why the Browns are down here, and the Giants are not, if you were wondering. The Minnesota Vikings, man, the injuries are just creeping up on them. The whole offensive line is hurt at this point. The defense, led by Brian Flores, I think is good enough that they're going to be able to give subpar quarterbacks real trouble, like we saw them do to Jake Browning, and they are 2-2. I think that they're going to float around 500 for much of the season. If they could get healthy and get J.J. McCarthy some real reps this year, that'd be nice, but it's a pretty big fall from grace from Minnesota from where they were last year with Captain Sam Darnold. The Cardinals, man, they're frisky. They're 2-2, but their 2 wins came against some pretty bad teams. Week to week, they're fine. Can you trust Kyler? No. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. breaking, was last game a step in the right direction? Absolutely. But Is he legit? I don't know. The defense is cool. I like Gannon. They're just the definition of frisky, in my opinion. And I got the Falcons in this tier too. I know there's a lot of Falcons fans out there that really believe in the team. And I think this week was a representation of their high highs, where when Penix is balling and when the offense is really rolling, they can look really good. But in this particular game, I just didn't see it from them. Next, we move into the Fringe Playoffs tier. And starting off this tier, I have the New England Patriots. Listen, 2-2, probably should be 3-1. I do think they outplayed Pittsburgh. Drake May has looked really solid. When the offense doesn't turn the ball over, this team is decent. The defense is starting to get better. I like their defensive line. And with their schedule, I do think New England's going to make a push to be a playoff team this year. I have the 3-1 Jags in this tier. And I get it if you're a Jags fan and you're like, hey, we're 3-1. Our defense is forcing hella turnovers right now. We should be a playoff team. I totally get it. I don't trust the offense. I like ETN. I like the run game. But between Trevor Lawrence being inaccurate and making some really bad decisions and the wide receiver drops right now, it feels a little bit like fool's gold to me with Jacksonville. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the defense will prove me wrong. Maybe, Cohen will get Trevor Lawrence rolling, and all of a sudden this team will go from fringe playoffs to maybe winning the division. But I lean fool's gold right now, and I got to be honest to that in the tier list. I got the Dallas Cowboys in this tier as well. I think week to week, they are a tough matchup for sure. The defensive line is looking decent right now. Ezaraku, Clark, Osa, and when Diggs and Bland play, the secondary isn't that bad. And when they get CeeDee Lamb out there with Dak and Pickens and Ferguson and Javonte, I think it's a top 10 offense in football. And credit where it's due, Schottenheimer has come in and done a pretty good job for the Dallas Cowboys. Their schedule's tough, their division's tough, so I don't know if they make the playoffs, but I think that they're a really good team. And I think that of these NFC teams, I would pick Dallas to beat them week to week. I also got the Bears in this tier. The Bears are right there with Dallas. I think if CD doesn't get hurt, that's a much more competitive football game. And for the Bears, 2-2, heading into their bye, probably should be 3-1, probably shouldn't have blown that lead to Minnesota. But ultimately, I like what I've seen from Chicago the last 2 weeks. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, the offense was really humming against Dallas. And then this past week, it was tough. Max Crosby was absolutely wrecking the game against them. Caleb and that offense stayed steady. They fought back. Caleb had a hell of a drive in the fourth quarter. And then the special teams unit came through with a blocked field goal. Coming out the bye, they're going to play Washington. That'd be a big, big game. We get to the playoff team tier, and I'm going to start this off with the Denver Broncos, man. The Broncos are 2-2. They probably, again, are a team that's 2-2 that should be telling themselves, hey, we should be 3-1 at least. Could be 4-0, but we should have beaten the Indianapolis Colts on that weird field goal. We didn't. But the offense looked really good against Cincinnati. Is that more Cincinnati? Is that more Denver? I don't know, but their defense is legit. And the RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins running back duo looks really, really solid right now. I got the Colts in this tier. The Colts, to me, feel like a locked playoff team. They maybe could have beaten the Rams, but at the end of the day, they just didn't make enough plays. Adonai Mitchell really cost them in that spot. I feel like they're playing really efficient football. I would certainly take them to win the AFC South right now over Jacksonville. Danny Dimes is playing decent ball. Jonathan Taylor's having a potential offensive player of the year season, although he's got to compete with Puka Nacua. The defense looked solid. They kind of gave up a lot in the second half of that game versus the Rams, but the Colts to me feel like a legit playoff team this season, not upcoming season. I got the Pittsburgh Steelers in this tier. They're 3-1. They're one of the weirder teams in football because I just can't tell you if I trust them on either side of the ball. They've had 2 bad weeks on defense, 2 good weeks on defense, 2 really decent weeks on offense, 2 not so decent weeks. This last game versus Minnesota is probably their most complete game of the season, but it was overseas. It was against Carson Wentz. The Vikings offensive line was real banged up, and they still almost let Minnesota back into it. At this point, the way their division is shaking out, they might win it, but I just don't trust them completely. Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens, man. I'm going to put them here on talent alone. Vegas still has Baltimore with better odds to make the playoffs than the Chiefs. Vegas still has Baltimore favored to win their division. I do think that the talent is there in terms of players. That defense being banged up really does worry me. But their losses this season have come to Kansas City, Detroit, and Buffalo, all teams that I have in the tiers above them. This week versus Houston will be a big tell, especially if Lamar plays. That's a game that theoretically they should be able to win. But if you're a Ravens fan, I think you have to be worried about this team. And I don't think that anybody right now can talk about the Baltimore Ravens as a legit Super Bowl contender. They have one of the worst defenses in football, and now Lamar is banged up. And Derrick Henry hasn't been playing great ball. I think it's enough to make the playoffs still in a weird AFC, but it's not great right now. It's not great right now for the Baltimore Ravens. I got the Seattle Seahawks in this tier, 3-1. Sam Darnold and JSN have a real connection. The defense is legit. Ken Walker and Charbonnet, it's a solid run game. I really like what I'm seeing out of Mike McDonald there in Seattle. The San Francisco 49ers, they're so banged up, but their schedule is so favorable. Purdy looked like he was hurt when he was still playing, didn't have a great game. You still have McCaffrey. Kittle will be back. Ayuk probably should be back. Now Ricky Pierce all dealing with a bit of an injury. Nick Bosa's out for the year. Again, the Niners are 3-1. Got to respect the record. Got to respect Shanahan. And I think with their schedule, they'll be a playoff team, but I don't see them pushing for a Lombardi trophy this season by any means. And then I got Washington in this tier. They went 1-1 in their time with Mariota. I'm not really going to move them up or down based on play with a backup quarterback. I had them as a playoff team 2 weeks ago with Jaden Daniels. I'm going to leave them as a playoff team. I hope we get to see Jaden back this week versus the Chargers, though. Moving into the Super Bowl contenders tier. I still have the Chargers in this tier, man. I know they just lost to the Giants, and that's why they dropped from favorites to contenders for me. But let's just be honest about the Chargers and take a macro look. I'm talking to you bolts all day. Macro. Through a month of the season, they're 3-1. That's a good record. Through a month of the season, they're 3-0 in the division. That is huge. Likely means that they're going to win the division. It's not set in stone, but it's a really good start to doing so. Check. Top 10 head coach? Check. Top 10 defense? Check. Top 10 quarterback? Check. A two-dimensional offense. Omarion Hampton has been balling out lately since Najee Harris got hurt. Hope that Najee has a speedy recovery, but this looks like maybe a blessing in disguise because Hampton is an absolute dog. Check. How many reliable weapons? Quentin Johnston. Suddenly, this guy's become a dependable wide receiver. 1, Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey. All the pieces are still there for the Chargers. They, travel East Coast, 1 o'clock kickoff, kind of a letdown game. You got Washington the next week. You're coming off 3 divisional games. It's a bad loss, yes, but the Chargers are still a really legit football team, man. Kansas City. I told you so. A lot of people wanted me to move Kansas City out of this Super Bowl contenders tier last week when they fell to 1-2. 0-2, 1-2, they wanted them out. And I said, guys, Kansas City is only going to get better. They haven't had Worthy. They've lost to Philly and the Chargers, 2 legit Super Bowl teams. They beat the Giants by double digits. I think they're going to beat the Baltimore Ravens this week. I'm keeping them in this tier. They have the best quarterback in the world, the best head coach in football, a top-tier defense, and they are getting better offensively. Trust. Kansas City, it's not just that they beat the Ravens. They beat the shit out of the Ravens. Kansas City Chiefs were always and are still Super Bowl contenders. Green Bay Packers, man. I got them as a contender. I don't want to say I was close to moving them down to a playoff team because I think that they were still firmly a contender for me. But the last 2 weeks, man, a loss to the Browns and a tie to the Cowboys. And I do respect the Cowboys, but that's a game that Green Bay should be able to get the win in. You shouldn't be giving up 40 points to a Dallas team without CeeDee Lamb. So the last 2 weeks with Green Bay, compared to the first 2 weeks, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. The Detroit Lions, man, the opposite. After a bad week 1, they are cooking again. The Detroit Lions look exactly like the Detroit Lions. Aiden Hutchinson, a little bit of an injury scare, but he's all right. The offense is humming. Jameer Gibbs has taken over the lead back role. And what's to say, man? They are the Detroit Lions. Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. Baker, 3 for 4 on fourth quarter comebacks this year. Only loss is to the undefeated reigning Super Bowl champions. Emeka Egbuka is a star. Bucky Irving is a star. They're going to get healthy on that offensive line. Chris Godwin, first game back. He's going to get healthier. Mike Evans will be back. The Buccaneers should absolutely be viewed as a legit Super Bowl contender. And the Los Angeles Rams. They hang on to that game versus the Colts, a game that maybe they should have lost. 2 Colts touchdowns taken away by errors from themselves on that team. But at the end of the day, when his back was against the wall. Matthew Stafford absolutely slaying the shit out of that rock. Puka Nacua might be a top 5 wide receiver, and he might be closer to 1 than 5. They are legit. The NFC, it's way better than the AFC right now. I'll tell you that much. And then we get to the Super Bowl favorites tier, man, and it's the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll talk about them just both in general, although shout out to your boy. His Super Bowl pick in the predictions video was Bills Eagles a month into the season. They're clearly the 2 best teams in football. I'm just saying, the math on it mathed out to open up the year for your boy. For Josh Allen and the Bills, the schedule has been a little cupcakey, but they have been winning pretty convincingly. Josh Allen is probably the MVP of the league if we give that award out after this point in time. Buffalo is doing everything that a top-tier team does. The run defense worries me a little bit, but no team is completely perfect at this point in time. To be undefeated after a month of football is an impressive feat. Josh Allen, James Cook, elite offensive duo. Philadelphia Eagles, best roster top to bottom in football in terms of talent. I'm not willing to hear debates on that. They're winning games despite bad X's and O's, bad offensive coordinator, bad play calling, purely on the talent they have. They just beat a team in Tampa who's a legit Super Bowl contender without throwing for a single yard in the second half. I think Philly has a top 5 defense in football right now, and it's carrying them to victories. And if that offensive scheme ever gets humming, the rest of the league needs to watch out. But as always, guys, this is just my tier list as we are 1 month into the football season. If you made it far in this video, hit the thumbs up button. Good for me. Lets me know that you guys dig these kind of videos. Hit the subscribe button if you love the NFL. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. I will catch you next time. Peace.